양지 진불도던 힘이 장존의 문음 진불가 겼다 바그라 다른 찬도 실물도 tumbadik janla ki shamsar mechanrawar saringi jankamsa jawar tukji shanla yilarma jime panso jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji lo gongje topan pawar shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Today we'll continue with the Sutra of Great Liberation. As for the Sutra of Great Liberation, yesterday we were discussing the various merits of the Mahayana, and we'll continue from there. Those Mahayana Buddhism practitioners will attain mental tranquility and possess clairvoyances, all self-adorned through the Mahayana. Through studying the Mahayana, the mind attains tranquility and one gains various supramundane miraculous powers, such as the 5 eyes and 6 powers. All of these arise from adorning oneself through the Mahayana. If we adorn ourselves with worldly knowledge, learning, or wealth, that may not be truly beautiful. True adornment means that the mind attains tranquility and the wisdom to benefit sentient beings develops. Anyone who is able to practice the great vehicle doesn't break the lineage of the 3 jewels. If some people practice Mahayana Buddhism, they are truly not severing the lineage of the 3 jewels. Because if the seed of the 3 jewels is severed, then in this world, the lineage of the 3 jewels can no longer continue. The continuation of this lineage actually depends mainly on spreading Mahayana Buddhism. Without the spread of Mahayana Buddhism, everything else, including the lesser vehicle, worldly vehicles, and even the physical representations of the 3 jewels, such as Buddha statues, sutras, and temples, may not necessarily endure. In the Sutra of Parables, there is an account of the Buddha appearing somewhat unhappy. At that time, Venerable Ananda, why does the Buddha now appear unhappy? The Buddha replied that over countless lifetimes he had practiced the Dharma for a very long time, yet now it seemed there were truly none who could benefit sentient beings by spreading Mahayana Buddhism. Therefore I appear very sorrowful. At that time Ananda said, "But that cannot be." Under the Buddha's teachings, there were tens of thousands of arhats in the past, there are just as many now, and there will be just as many in the future. How could there be no one to inherit the family legacy? That's impossible. The Buddha then gave an analogy. For example, in a family, if all the children born are daughters with no sons, can the family legacy be passed down? Ananda said that would be somewhat difficult. Perhaps it was like this in India, and it seems the Han region and Tibetan region are similar too. For a family legacy to truly be passed down, it has always been through sons. Ananda was thinking along these lines as well. Later the Buddha said, "I have many teachings, yet there are no such Mahayana disciples." And the Buddha at that moment appeared somewhat sorrowful and shed 3 tears. At that instant the entire Trikaliya trembled, and many people, devas, and countless sentient beings, because of this, all generated the aspiration for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. Afterward, the Buddha again displayed a smile and appeared joyful. At that time, Ananda asked once more, "Why does the Buddha now seem very happy? What is the reason for this?" The Buddha then said, "It is like an elderly person when they are advanced in years. If suddenly a son is born into their family, what would that be like? Would there not be hope for the entire family legacy to be inherited?" Ananda said, "Yes." The Buddha later also said, "I am the same." Now that so many have generated the Mahayana aspiration for Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the lineage of the 3 jewels can continue. From this account in the Sutra of Parables, everyone should understand clearly that to truly continue the Buddha's wisdom life, we have to spread Mahayana Buddhism in the future. We can also say it truly enables spreading of the Tathagata's teachings without severing the lineage of the 3 jewels. Anyone who is inclined toward the 3 jewels obtains merit that is without limit. If some people generate bodhicitta and aspire toward the Mahayana, these people truly have very great merit. They can travel to all realms in the 10 directions, making offerings to the limitless victorious ones of the 10 directions. As I mentioned a few days ago, when you first generate bodhicitta, you may not immediately go before various Tathagatas to make offerings to the Tathagatas of the 10 directions. However, generally speaking, once you reach the path of accumulation and beyond, whether in dreams or in reality, you frequently go before the Buddhas of the 10 directions and can make offerings to the Tathagatas of the 10 directions. This also comes from the power of Mahayana Buddhism, and similarly making offerings to this Mahayana all-expansive sutra, no worldly vehicle holds any comparison. So we can say the Sutra of Great Liberation, which is a vast Mahayana sutra, could not be surpassed in the world. It should be incomparable, as it is endowed with glory and splendor, and it conquers samsara. It possesses inconceivable majesty, blessings, and power, and thus it can destroy the birth and death of samsara in this world. All can be eliminated. The great vehicle is difficult to fathom, that the merit of the Mahayana, the meaning and its benefits to sentient beings are truly inconceivable, not to mention we, ordinary beings. Even if the Buddha proclaimed it over countless eons, it could never be fully expressed. By it, you will obtain a powerful form and sovereignty, and manifestly establish a marvelous Dharmakaya. Anyone who mounts this great vehicle will experience unsurpassable joy. When we study Mahayana Buddhism, one benefit is the attainment of physical dignity, including a dignified complexion, strength, and presence. Because practitioners of Mahayana Buddhism hold only sentient beings in their hearts, and harbor no other afflictions, their entire countenance and majesty are utterly distinct from ordinary people. Moreover, from the ultimate perspective, they possess and accomplish the Dharmakaya and Svabhavikakaya, manifesting the true body of the Tathagata itself. Anyone who rides such a Mahayana vehicle experiences supreme bliss in this human world. They are very happy. Why is this so? Because all suffering in our world stems from selfishness. When someone's mind becomes completely altruistic, and their learning, contemplation, and practice are all grounded in the Mahayana, personal suffering simply falls away. Of course, they may still experience certain suffering, the compassionate suffering that arises when sentient beings are in pain. But there are methods to eliminate even this kind of suffering when they can benefit sentient beings. So all the happiness in our world comes from altruism. All the suffering in the world comes from self-interest. The principles taught in the guide to the Bodhisattva way of life are truly very important. We can all experience this in our everyday lives as well. As long as a person generates bodhicitta and has a strong altruistic mind, their daily life becomes quite happily, fully, and meaningfully. But if a person thinks every day only about their own future, their own interests, their own various aspects, anxious about this or that, all manner of suffering will arise wave after wave, relentlessly and without end. From our own personal experience, we can all completely understand this. So those who truly study Mahayana Buddhism are genuinely happy, and this happiness is not pretended, not like saying, I'm very happy now, I'm living very happily. It's not pretending like this. Actually, when a person's mind stream contains the realm of Mahayana Buddhism, or when you truly wish to benefit sentient beings, then whether you fall ill, whether your reputation is damaged, whether your personal career setbacks, whatever adversity you face, you will have an inner strength and endures. Next, what is the Mahayana like? If you meditate on compassion and love through the giving of the body, giving up oneself, making offerings to sentient beings, practicing compassion, you will obtain the unsurpassable vehicle. All of these completely rely on the supreme vehicle. Where does the lesser vehicle have this? Where in the world is there such thought? There isn't. Practicing ethics, effort, and celibacy is a miracle that can even obscure the actual moon and sun. Moreover, that is through the power of practicing the great vehicle. If we uphold refuge precepts, general lay precepts, and other such precepts, and practice diligently, cultivating pure conduct, for example, among us lay people, there are also those who practice pure conduct, completely abandoning sexual misconduct and so forth, and monastics who cultivate such pure conduct. Then through this practice, one's own miraculous powers can eventually eclipse the sun and moon. In time, great miraculous powers fully manifest and profound wisdom flows forth. We see this in the accounts of great masters from the past, eclipsing the light of the sun and moon, demonstrating in this world all manner of miraculous transformations and sublime accomplishments. All of this flows from the practice of Mahayana Buddhism. The Mahayana path possesses countless inconceivable qualities, including rainbow body accomplishment in Vajrayana, or ordinary benefiting of countless sentient beings, all of which will be attained through practicing Mahayana Buddhism. One who by their own mind practices with continual effort will therefore obtain the great vehicle. When we diligently practice for a long time, will attain the Mahayana Dharma. Moreover, the great altruistic mind will also motivate us to practice diligently. We have no time for distraction and laziness. When it comes to benefiting sentient beings, the busier and more tired we are, the better. Of course, when thinking of ourselves, we naturally prefer ease, happiness, and tranquility, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yet when we truly wish to benefit sentient beings, even numerous trivial tasks become meaningful and important. For our minds to genuinely progress in practice, we should draw upon the power of Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana practitioners find themselves naturally compelled to be diligent. So many beings need their help. Moreover, these beings require not just one method, but myriad skillful means. This is why the great masters of the past essentially never wasted a moment. From morning to evening, everything they did was very meaningful. Those of us with selfish minds, we ordinary beings, just muddle through. Today we pass the day in distraction. Tomorrow we pass it in affliction. This is very pitiful. But those who truly possess bodhicitta in their mind stream are exceptionally diligent, even if there are obscurations that oppress with suffering. Through meditating on the great vehicle, all of those can be purified. If you have much suffering, many afflictions, and many unfavorable karmic results, what can you turn to? The practice of Mahayana Buddhism. The afflictions within our mind stream truly can be eliminated. All the various kinds of suffering in our mind stream can likewise be removed through Mahayana Buddhism. Sometimes when life brings suffering, when you face hardships, simply recall the suffering of other beings, the torments in the hell realms, the anguish of hungry ghosts, and suddenly your own suffering seems barely worth mentioning. It's nothing at all. When you contemplate this, your own troubles becomes quite small. Furthermore, you can exchange your suffering through Tonglen, transform it into the spiritual path, or willingly bear the sufferings of others. In this way, Mahayana Buddhism teaches us to face suffering without fear. This fearlessness is not savage or reckless. It's not a crude display. Rather, it's a wise and skillful acceptance. Whoever abides happily in the Dharma of the great vehicle will be like a Buddha in their lifespan and enjoyments. If we constantly abide in Mahayana Sutras, regularly study them, constantly read them, regularly practice these Mahayana Sutras, we will long experience happiness. Just like the Buddha never experiences suffering. We too, if we constantly, some Dharma friends constantly read Mahayana Sutras, especially sutras like this Sutra of Great Liberation. If we read it regularly, naturally our mind stream receives blessings and we won't have such suffering. Those who persevere in authentic mindfulness will, through the power of meditating on the great vehicle, gain the 4 miraculous feet. Through such diligent engagement with the Mahayana, samadhi, diligence, and right mindfulness will naturally arise in our experience. Among the 37 factors of awakening we often explore, we can also develop the power of the 4 bases of miraculous power, relying on true Dharma and ultimate meaning, all from sustained practice of Mahayana Sutras. The extraordinary fortune we enjoy meeting sublime teachers in this life, encountering authentic Dharma, discovering truth. Where does this really come from? Throughout countless lifetimes, we have constantly practiced Mahayana Buddhism and immersed ourselves in its sutras. Only through this do we now encounter truth. Some of us truly have very good fortune. In this very lifetime, we have encountered some truly extraordinary masters, especially good Dharma and truth. You might assume it's coincidental, but it's not coincidental at all. Over immense spans of time, You have been accumulating merit, serving spiritual teachers, and practicing Mahayana Buddhism. Only now do such precious conditions come together. And then there are the supreme qualities of Buddhahood itself, the 10 powers, the fearlessnesses, the perfect 32 major marks, the diamond-like samadhi, and omniscient wisdom. All of these are originated from the holy Dharma. Should we bring long to the front? All through long practice of the Mahayana. When we attain Buddhahood, the Buddha's 10 powers, 4 fearlessnesses, 18 distinctive qualities, as well as the 32 marks and 80 minor marks, and the Vajra-like samadhi, the final Vajra-like concentration. All these qualities of omniscient wisdom come from our practice of Mahayana Buddhism over countless lifetimes. So with the practice of Mahayana Buddhism, one possesses all qualities, wisdom and compassion. If you don't practice well, these supramundane qualities are utterly unobtainable, meaning it's impossible to attain them. At this point, the Buddha told Bodhisattva Akashagarbha, son of the lineage, anyone who upholds this enumeration of the Mahayana Dharma, whether they hold or recite a single syllable, single word, or single verse. If some people uphold the Sutra of Great Liberation, whether one word, one sentence, or even one verse, they'll be completely free from all suffering. This is very important. All of us here are still studying and upholding it. It's not just one word or one sentence. If we have the opportunity, everyone will have a copy of entire Sutra. Unfortunately, some listened well at the beginning, but later it seems they didn't complete it. This might be an issue of merit. Whoever it is, everyone is willing at the beginning, but partway through some give up halfway. Only some people are still listening. In any case, even if it's just one verse from here, one will not fall into the 3 lower realms. Also, at the time of death, they will not fall to the bad transmigrations, but will go to an abode of bliss. Place of peace is also acceptable. Finally, one attains a place of peace, is reborn in the pure land of ultimate bliss. The Contemplation Sutra also teaches that with compassion, not killing, and long recitation of Mahayana Sutras, and making aspirations to be reborn in the Pure Land, reciting the name for 1 to 7 days, one will definitely be reborn in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. This is what the Contemplation Sutra taught us. As upholding of Mahayana Sutras is very important. In Han region Buddhism, this aspect should be very good. In every monastery, for example, during morning and evening services, they constantly read the Vajrakedika Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Heart Sutra, and many also read the Amitabha Sutra. They continuously engage with the Flower Ornament Sutra, the Lotus Sutra, the Medicine Buddha Sutra, and many others. Constantly reciting Mahayana texts which carry inconceivable blessings and transformative power. This practice is vital. Anyone who hears this sutra later in the future, at the end or during the difficult time when people encounter this scripture, the Buddha proclaimed, I prophesy to them all, they will ultimately attain Buddhahood. In the future, whoever obtains the Sutra of Great Liberation, these people, I prophesy they will ultimately attain Buddhahood. I'm not quite sure the time. Though the Buddha didn't say what our Buddha name will be, what our Pure Land will be, these details weren't specified. But the essential point is this. Having encountered this sutra, we will all eventually attain Buddhahood. This is the Buddha's Vajra speech. There was a passage from somewhere in the past. With one thought of rejoicing, all attain Supreme Bodhi. This should be from the Lotus Sutra. With one thought of rejoicing, all attain Supreme Bodhi. So towards such Mahayana Sutras, with just a single moment of joyful appreciation, the Buddha prophesies the attainment of supreme enlightenment. If you don't believe in the Buddha's Vajra speech, that's another matter. Once we truly believe, this sutra is still very important. I've even been thinking, in my hometown there are 2 lay Buddhist centers. The other day a Khenpo told me that he was teaching the Sutra of Great Liberation. I was very delighted and would like to task another Khenpo to see he can also transmit it. Because many of the lay people in our area haven't attended school and may not be literate. Yet I feel that as long as they hear this sutra before they die, that would be extremely meaningful. Unlike us here, everyone can all read and understand. Where I'm from, perhaps 60 to 70% of people are not literate. Like my father and mother in the past, they couldn't even write their own names, but their faith was truly very good. And Their kind of faith was especially devout. In the past, I also had them teach the Karandavyuha Sutra, the Medicine Buddha Sutra, and also the words of my perfect teacher, an ocean of good explanation, a commentary on the Bodhicharyavatara. They've taught all of these well. In the future, if we have the ability, we might go to other places such as nursing homes, lay Buddhist centers, senior care facilities, not rehabilitation centers, what do you call them? Anywhere elderly people gather, we could share teachings about the Buddha's name and such things, recite these Mahayana sutras. Now they may not understand everything, but just having it enter their ears, if we can give the transmission just once, recite it for them, I think that's very good. Of course, I don't know if we can find such opportunities. Sometimes some people truly want to share the Dharma, but disciples are hard to find, especially when you're just beginning to study Mahayana Buddhism. The desire to teach is particularly strong. Yet some people, perhaps because their bodhicitta hasn't fully matured, give up teaching when they hit even small bumps in the road. This really shouldn't happen. Now, if there's truly no way forward, if serious obstacles arise, then you may need to step back. But generally speaking, encountering minor obstacles is completely normal. In fact, when the Dharma flourishes, demons also multiply, so we need to definitely persevere. Some of our Dharma teachers at the beginning think that teaching will be easy, but actually it is not at all. You'll face misconduct from disciples, and society's attitude changes completely. When you're not teaching the Dharma, when you're quietly going about your life, everyone's friendly. But the moment you step into the public role of teaching, suddenly there's jealousy all around, attacks from various quarters, slanders. Everything comes out, and if you're not strong enough at that point, teaching becomes impossible. You can barely make it through each day. This is why I've been thinking that in the future, working with nursing homes, lay Buddhist centers, especially reaching elderly people, many of whom don't have much time left in this world. Their remaining days are limited. Young people, unless they face sudden death, comparatively their time is a bit longer. So for the elderly in particular, this kind of work is profoundly important. Sometimes I think about the Buddhist institute I founded in my hometown. Perhaps they could engage in this work too. Buddhist institutes are important, but these elderly lay people, they're truly special. They've fulfilled all their worldly responsibilities now, as they near life's end, to encounter genuine Dharma, to spend their days listening to teachings, reciting the Buddha's name, engaging in heartfelt repentance. These are profoundly meaningful for many people. Unfortunately, in many places now, we may not have a particularly good environment, but that's all right. Even on a personal level, on a small scale, whether reaching elderly people or fellow practitioners, we should nurture such vision and commitment to sharing the Dharma. This is also very important. Whoever upholds this sutra, the Buddha constantly draws near. If we constantly recite this sutra, constantly reflect upon this sutra, constantly read this sutra, constantly take refuge, pay homage, uphold it. In this way, the Buddha, from the ultimate perspective, is beyond the 4 extremes and 8 elaborations, yet whose presence operates through dependent arising in our world, constantly approaches those who engage with sutras and continuously blesses them. This person constantly approaches the Buddha. This person protects the Buddha Dharma. If we constantly recite this sutra, the Buddha also constantly draws near. And this person simultaneously draw near to the Buddha. Actually, between the Buddha, the sutras, and ourselves, there's a living karmic connection. For those who constantly read and recite sutras, the Buddha also constantly blesses you. That is to say, the sutras are the Buddha's represents. When we regularly invoke the Buddha and recite sutras, we receive the Buddha's constant blessings. But if we constantly disparage or reject the Buddha, while the Buddha holds no grudge, the natural law of karmic cause and effect inevitably brings various forms of suffering. So this understanding too is vitally important. If we regularly recite this sutra, constantly protect this sutra, the Buddha also constantly draws near to you, and this person also constantly draws near to the Buddha. Moreover, this person also protects the Buddha Dharma. Some people may think, what if I don't have the capacity? I really want to share the Buddha Dharma and protect the Buddha Dharma. Actually, if you constantly properly tame your own mind, reciting some sutras every day, reflecting upon some sutras every day, constantly doing this, even if it's merely 1 verse, 10 verses, this person is actually protecting the Buddha Dharma. Anyone who protects the victorious one's Dharma, the victorious one will also protect them. This is a kind of connection, dependent origination. I also have this kind of feeling. For example, when I go to cities and become distracted, it seems the Buddha doesn't pay attention to me, and my guru doesn't pay attention to me. Everything becomes chaotic, even in dreams. But when I find a somewhat better environment, properly praying the guru and reading some books, my mind will gradually settle down. I would often dream of my guru. It feels like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are blessing me. Truly, there is this kind of connection. Many of us should be able to experience this. If you abandon Buddhist sutras and what you originally studied, some people are very pitiful. They studied the Buddhism for a very long time and were especially diligent at the time. They originally had great faith, but somehow later it's as if they've been struck by a poisoned arrow. Suddenly they're done. After that they won't even look at their Dharma books anymore. Books they once cherished as precious treasures, now they give them away carelessly. Their minds have been captured by wrong views and demonic forces. Such heartbreaking cases happen all too often. So we have to constantly pray that throughout our entire lives we won't abandon the Buddha Dharma, won't abandon Buddhist sutras, won't abandon the Guru and Three Jewels. Even if we can't become an especially diligent and excellent practitioner, we absolutely can't become someone who destroys Buddhism or abandons Buddhism. From both worldly and transcendent perspectives, such a fall benefits no one. They will attain great miracles, will have ability to turn the wheel of Dharma through practicing this Mahayana path. Those who constantly recite the Sutra of Great Liberation, eventually their wisdom increases more and more until they become capable of turning the great Dharma wheel. This is guaranteed. Liberating beings in the realms of birth and death, they can free countless beings trapped in cyclic existence. They can destroy Mara's forces. So in the process of their practice, humans and non-humans, outer Maras, the Mara of death, basically they have no opportunity to exploit them. Truly, those who practice very diligently, as we also teach in the commentary on the verse summary of Prajnaparamita, if one is very diligent, the forces of Mara also won't harm them. If this person very lazy, the forces of Mara are rather pleased and also won't possess them. Those who are mediocre, diligent today, lazy tomorrow, the forces of Mara are constantly watching them, paying attention to them. The Buddha said, after I heard this sutra from the victorious one unchanging light. In some versions it says vast sutra. The Buddha said, I heard this sutra of great liberation in the presence of Tathagata, unchanging light in the past. I abided in patience, and it was prophesied that I would become the one called Shakyamuni. Named as varies in different versions. Some versions don't use the character ni in Muni, but I think all 5 characters named Shakyamuni might be better, although it differs a bit from before, since some say named as Shakyamu, and some versions say named as Shakyamu. In Tibetan it's Shakyathab. In that case, as might not be important. Named Shakyamuni, we should keep Shakyamuni, otherwise named as Shakyamu. Named Shakyamuni, at that time the prophecy was given for Shakyamuni Buddha. Later, after I have passed beyond sorrow, whoever holds this sutra from me, this is what I prophesy. The Buddha said, after my parinirvana, anyone studies this sutra of great liberation. I have already given them all a prophecy. Look, today all of us here are studying the sutra of great liberation, and thus we all have a prophecy. Ahat will our Buddha name be. As just mentioned, that prophecy are not made clear, but going further in the future, our Buddha name, our Buddha field, we still need to choose to see what kind of pure land we want in the future and what kind of beings we want to guide, all pure, all obedient. Now it's like some of our managers, whoever is good to me is a good person. Even if their work is not serious, it doesn't matter. No creativity also doesn't matter. Anyway, if they're 100% especially respectful to me, this is a good person, a good practitioner. If there's even a little bit of resistance, that's not so good. There are such cases. So when the time comes for us to receive our own pure lands, all pure, beautiful, magnificent, happy, joyful people, Shakyamuni Buddha at that time chose us pitiful beings of this degenerate age. I don't know what we'll be like in the future. Buddha, whosoever in the future understands the meaning of this sutra and explains it well to foolish beings, in the future age, some people who understand or comprehend the meaning of the Sutra of Great Liberation, they'll definitely teach it to these pitiful, ignorant beings. Though the Buddha is not in the world, teach them and expound the Dharma, will not sever the three jewels. You see, this is truly very important. I hope everyone makes an aspiration that in the future, if we have the opportunity, we will teach this sutra, especially our Dharma teachers, Khenpos, those who previously led study sessions. In the future, if we have the opportunity, we should think that throughout our entire lives, we should transmit it at least once or twice. If we don't do this, we should also recite the sutra. The other day when I went to our monastery, there was a Lama in retreat, and he's still very good. When I was about in my teens in the past, when policies were very strict, outside where I was born, during horse races, at that time he wouldn't go out to watch. There was a small tent. I had nowhere to stay, so I asked if he could lend it to me. He lent me the tent. That night we stayed together, but he just kept reciting sutras, wouldn't go out to watch. I remember thinking, why doesn't this person go watch such spectacular horse racing and dancing? This was probably back in the 70s or 80s. Later, he's now at the monastery. The other day, he told me something remarkable, that he's completed 10,000 recitations of the Sutra of Great Liberation. In the past, in the presence of Dicha Tulku, he made an aspiration to recite it 10,000 times. And then every single day without fail, he kept at it. 10,000 times if you recite once a day, that would take about 30 to 40 years, right? So perhaps if we're among the more dedicated practitioners, we too should aspire to recite it once daily. If we're of medium capacity, I think at minimum, at the very least, once a year, we should recite the Sutra of Great Liberation. It should be possible, right? Anyway, you all see for yourselves. If you have aspirations in this regard, today also make such an aspiration in your heart. I won't ask you to raise hands, otherwise those who don't want to recite would feel a bit embarrassed. But I think many people should recite at least once a year. Since the merit of this sutra is so great, I think this is also not a big deal for you. Recite it once a year. It should be possible. You see, it says here, we should teach it to sentient beings. If we do this, though the Buddha is not in the world, the lineage of the three jewels is not severed, and it's as if the Buddha were in the world. There's no difference. This sutra actually represents the Buddha. We think a Buddha with excellent marks is very extraordinary, but actually encountering this sutra is also very important. Why do we say we're very fortunate? The other day I was thinking, those we used to know, including Khenpos, some old Dharma friends, some of them have already left the human realm. Alas, if only I had transmitted this sutra earlier, how wonderful that would have been. I once thought this way. Later I thought, if I had transmitted it earlier, perhaps those who came later wouldn't have heard it either. Not transmitting it. Now there are more people, which is also better. Later I thought again, sigh, if I had transmitted it last year there would have been even more people. But this truly is the merit of sentient beings. In any case, those of us here today, or those who later obtain it through various means, whether reading the commentary or hearing the audio, also equally receive this blessing and benefit. So for everyone should generate faith, as it's also the same. Whether we are present here or people who form connections with the Dharma book later, it should be very meaningful. I personally also think that teaching of the Sutra of Great Liberation is the most important in my life, perhaps more important than Vajrayana sometimes, because for Vajrayana there are many requirements regarding samayas, but here there aren't. No matter what kind of sentient beings, all can accept it. Why is that? The Buddha said. It is because previously, when I received this sutra from limitless Tathagatas, I upheld it, and since I taught it at length to others during this degenerate eon, what it's saying is in the past, because of this reason, I also attained the 32 marks. Of course, the 32 marks also have other causes and conditions, but this is one important cause and condition. Then the Bodhisattva Akashagarbha spoke to the Bhagavan. Bhagavan, all Tathagatas, moreover, explained the 32 marks of a great being. If the Bhagavan were to also explain the 32 marks here now, then through the power of whatever causal karma is created, they will be achieved. Therefore, Will the Bhagavan please clarify them and teach them? We especially wish to hear it. Bodhisattva Akashagarbha asked this. The Buddha told Bodhisattva Akashagarbha, son of the lineage, let's discuss the 32 marks. The 32 marks are relatively simple. So I think today I'll teach you all a bit more regarding these 32 marks. Everyone also knows it was taught the Nagarjuna's precious garland and the necklace of white lotus, Ju Mifam Rinpoche's explanation on the ornament of clear realization. What's taught both in the Abhisamya Alankara and the Ratnaval are quite similar, but compared to this Sutra of Great Liberation, the sequence and some names are not especially the same. The 32 marks taught in the Sutra of Great Liberation are basically the same to those taught in the Uttara Tantra, except for 2 or 3 places. Mahasamnipata Sutra and related sutras also teach the 32 marks. In fact, what the Mahasamnipata Sutra teaches is remarkably similar, aside from a few word choices, essentially the same. So as Buddhists, we should all clearly understand these 32 marks. Now, these marks actually describe the profoundly dignified characteristics of the Buddha's physical form. In ancient India, these were considered supremely noble features. But here's the thing, that modern aesthetic sensibilities and values have evolved considerably. Some marks from our contemporary perspective may not seem so dignified, but actually these are a kind of cause of immeasurable merit. It's just that we ourselves don't fully recognize their dignity. In reality, these are profoundly excellent marks. Think about it. Aesthetic ideals today vary widely. Views on facial features and body type differ dramatically between African and Chinese cultures. Even within Chinese history, the Tang and Song dynasties held quite different aesthetic standards. Throughout the world, due to history, culture, and countless other factors, these perspectives have shifted over time. But the dignity of the Buddha described here comes from immeasurable merit. Everyone should all recognize this truth. Unfortunately, on some websites nowadays, people misuse images of the Buddha's 32 marks, deliberately slandering the Buddha and creating negative karma. There are also such people. Such people are truly pitiful. They simply don't understand the causes and conditions behind the Buddha's immeasurable merit. They're just indulging in idle conceptual chatter, gossiping idly. We needn't pay them any mind. So what we should do, we should cultivate pure faith in the Tathagata, who possesses these 32 marks, and aspire ourselves to one day attain the Tathagata's physical form. When we attain the Tathagata's marks, there will be especially excellent symbolic meaning and significance. The Buddha told Bodhisattva Akashagarbha, son of the lineage, the Tathagatas have achieved the 32 marks. If I were to explain them at length, even if I explained for an entire eon, I would not exhaust them. Today, I will explain them briefly to you. Next it says, son of the lineage. Some versions don't have this. And it also seems not to be there in the Tibetan version. Next, we'll explain each cause of the 32 marks and then show its manifestation. Through protecting pure ethics from the depths of his heart and being resolute in his obligations, the Bhagavan was endowed with the mark of very well set feet. We've also taught these many times before, and thus we don't need to repeat them one by one. Since the Tathagata protected pure precepts in the past, today he attains this mark of level soul, not arched like ours. The Tathagata practiced various kinds of generosity. In the Tibetan, it includes through having reverence for welcoming and sending off the Guru, listening to the Dharma, and establishing temples and stupas. For these reasons, you attain the mark of 1,000 spoked wheels on your hands and feet. In some versions, the words hands and feet aren't there, but in Tibetan, it has the mark of 1,000 spoked wheels on hands and feet. The 1,000-spoked wheel mark means there are lines, patterns on the feet and hands. In the Sutra of Parables, it states that once the Buddha went to the city and returned to a quiet place. When a Brahmin came, he saw the Buddha's footprints and thought they were especially dignified with 1,000-spoked wheels. He thought, what kind of person is this? He followed the Buddha's footprints. When he arrived, he found the Buddha sitting under a tree, radiating extraordinary dignity. He asked, why Why are you so dignified? The Buddha said, I attained this through eliminating afflictions. Although lotuses grow in water, they remain unstained. The Buddha is the same. Although present amid afflictions, I am not defiled. The Brahmin was very intrigued, yet he just left. How unfortunate, as he didn't seek Dharma, didn't seek blessings either. He had merely noticed the Buddha's footprints as especially unique, and after seeing the Buddha, didn't even receive any Dharma. Just as described here. So the Buddha's thousand-spoked wheel marks, they arise from generosity or from serving the Guru and listening to teachings. Such causes and conditions lead to the thousand-spoked wheel marks. Through not demeaning any sentient being, the Bhagavan was endowed with the mark of broad heels. The heels are broad, long, round, and full, very dignified, prominent marks. Through completely protecting the holy Dharma, the Bhagavan was endowed with the mark of long fingers and toes. Through practicing the four means of gathering disciples, or as the Tibetan says, because he practiced the four means of attraction, generosity, kind words, and the other two, because he cultivated these four means of attraction, or because he never disrupted others' communities, the Bhagavan was endowed with the mark of webbed fingers and toes. In the Mahasamnipata Sutra, these terms are quite similar. There should be different versions. We can also say this. The mark of webbed fingers was also taught before. Through the generosity of giving excellent cloth, because the Tathagata in the past made generosity and merit with fine garments, in this life what did he attain? He, the mark of tender and soft hands and feet. In the past, the Buddha made generosity with pure food, making generosity with pure food. Now what did he attain? The mark of fullness in 7 places. Both hands, both feet, both shoulders, and the back of the head. These 7 places all attain the mark of fullness, not like worldly people. Through having joy on hearing the Buddha Dharma, in this life what did he attain? He attained the mark of calves like those of an antelope. Some say it's arms, but I checked and found this arms might not be correct. Zhuan. This character has the flesh radical, and above the radical is mountain, below is ear. It's probably like this. The mark of royal stag calves. This should be commonly used in Buddhist sutras. Through hiding and concealing the deceit and misdeeds of others, or the Tibetan version says he never committed sexual misconduct or never violated sexual misconduct, the Tathagata attained the mark of a secret place that retracts into a sheath. Through meditating on the 10 virtues, the Tathagata attained the mark of an upper torso like that of a lion. Because the Tathagata constantly guided sentient beings with wholesome dharma, in this life he attained the mark of very broad shoulders. Some versions say lack of bones is a typo, but it should not be. Flat, full collarbone. What do we call this area? You know how nowadays many celebrities are so thin they can actually balance coins in their collarbones. They think it looks good. Actually, looking at this, it's like a hungry ghost when the bones stick out like that, but the Buddha would not be like this. It should be full, right? Very dignified. Yet people today think this place, the bones, must protrude prominently here. So they place various things in the hollows. We're talking about the collarbone, a very important feature. Because he rescued beings who had fear in the past, he attained the mark of full arms and elbows. The area around the elbows is very full. Seeing others creating works for the 3 jewels and delighting in helping, delighting in assisting. For this reason, he attained the mark of hands reaching past the knees, which means the hands already extend past the knees, like Shakyamuni Buddha. Generally, we probably don't have this, already extending past the knees. This comes from seeing others' wholesome deeds and rejoicing. Because the Tathagata constantly practiced the 10 virtues and wholesome dharma, the Tathagata's body is very pure and dignified, without any defilement, impurity, or foul smell. Because the Tathagata always offered medicine to those who were ill, whenever people were sick, he would provide them with medicine. For this reason, the food he receives manifests the ultimate taste in all its fullness. Its taste is especially good. But in some sutras, it says the mark of manifesting at the throat. How is the throat? Some also have this. But here, because all the food the Buddha consumes is all of excellent taste, in the past, wasn't there rather spoiled horse grain? After the Buddha consumed it, it all became supreme delicacies. Ananda once, it seems the Buddha took a tiny grain of wheat from between his teeth and gave it to Ananda. Ananda thought it was inconceivable. Whatever the Buddha tastes, the taste is all very delicious. Because he spoke wholesome dharma at the appropriate time. In the Tibetan, it's like this. The Buddha once constantly abstained from frivolous speech and taught dharma according to the time. Suited to the capacities of sentient beings, he attained the mark of lion cheeks, very dignified cheeks, constantly cultivating an equanimous mind towards sentient beings. Treating all sentient beings equally in the causal ground, Devadatta and Rahula were also viewed equally, treated impartially. For this reason, he attained the mark of 40 teeth. The Buddha's teeth and our ordinary beings' teeth are also different in number. The Buddha once also greatly delighted in mediating or reconciling disputes, harmonizing various conflicts. For this reason, he attained the mark of close-set teeth. The teeth should be relatively not like some of ours. Between two teeth, one can clearly see, how should I put this? Between the gaps in the teeth, one can see the tongue dancing inside. It's not like that. Because the Buddha in the past made generosity with jewels to sentient beings, his teeth are also very even, not like some of us, teeth growing one on top, one inside, very uneven. Without any discipline, the teeth are rather chaotic. Not like this. They should be very even. Actually, African people have very good teeth. They still really value their teeth. Looking at each one, whether male or female, their teeth are all very good. I only admire their teeth. I can't say this, otherwise when I go to Africa later, they won't pay attention to me. Africa is quite good. They're very resilient. I often think of going to Africa again. Africa is still quite good because of purity in body, speech, and mind. He attained the mark of 2 white teeth. The upper teeth and lower teeth not meaning 2 teeth. It should be that all the teeth are especially white, protecting the 4 aspects of lying, frivolous speech, harsh speech, divisive speech. In some versions, it's protecting speech. The Mahasamnipata Sutra also says protecting the 4 aspects of speech. In Tibetan, it's just protecting verbal karma, protecting the faults of verbal karma. For this reason, the Buddha has the mark of a broad, long tongue, accomplishing immeasurable merit. He attained the mark of supreme taste among tastes. This is somewhat similar to the previous one. There was one before, but in Tibetan this mark doesn't appear. But the Mahasamnipata Sutra still has it appear, saying here the mark of supreme taste among tastes. In the Mahasamnipata Sutra it already appears. Because the Buddha constantly used gentle language to teach sentient beings, he attained the mark of Brahma's voice. Actually, gentle language is truly very important. When communicating with others, for example, the same word, just the tone, for instance, get out. Could you please go out? The same words, but the feeling given to others is truly not the same. Sometimes, if the other party is good at communication, although one doesn't acknowledge it, if the other party is so respectful to me, it should still be very good. Between people, language is very important. If others use a commanding way, give me such and such, like this, many sentient beings' hearts might also feel uncomfortable. When teaching Dharma, we should have a way of constantly speaking gentle language to sentient beings, warm language, warm reminders. This is very good. Some hotels often say warm reminder, but the service staff below are not warm at all. They glare at you like this. This also won't do. There should be a way. I understand this principle, but when doing it, sometimes in our meetings, we argue very fiercely, arguing back and forth, also like this. But sometimes it might also be needed. It seems sometimes if it's completely gentle language, others won't take you seriously. But if you scold them fiercely, it seems they display the form of a real person. Otherwise, they basically don't pay attention to you. Sometimes we also need this. So Mifam Rinpoche said language still needs to suit the occasion. It's very important. The Buddha would not be like this, speaking harsh speech, bad speech, just speak gentle language. Cultivating a mind of loving kindness, he attained the mark of fine, long eyes. The Buddha's eyes are distinct in black and white, very dignified. Wholeheartedly seeking supreme Bodhi, he attained the mark of eyelashes like a bull king. So the mark of bull king eyelashes. Now, many beauties in the world have eyelashes in various colors, like iron wires. They do all kinds of things. Some people say now online they specifically grow eyelashes. In a short time they can grow them out. Now everything exists. So many people probably think that individual marks among the Buddha's 32 marks now can all be done with some plastic surgery. They can basically be almost the same as the Buddha. In some places, flesh can be added on top, excess can be cut off, teeth can all be done. Now in Korea, for many people, any young person basically will undergo complete plastic surgery. If they don't, since the whole nation has done it, it won't work anymore. Now, many young people in our Tibetan region also often go to different cities, stay for a while, and come back. So eyelashes are also like the bull king. Regarding the bull king, you probably don't know. The bull king is called a zo. Its eyes are truly very distinct in black and white. In Tibetan, we say zomo. Its eyes are especially clear, just like when a child is first born, when their eyes first open, especially dignified and lovely. The bull king's eyes are all like this. Its eyelashes are also like this. Praising others' merits, he attained the mark of white hair curl. As taught before, the Buddha's white hair curl mark sometimes extends several meters. It's a manifestation of merit. Respecting parents, preceptors, meaning abbots. In the past, it was probably written as this shang, and acharyas, and also gurus. He manifested the yusnisa mark. Delighting in teaching the Mahayana Dharma, he attained the mark of a soft body, not very stiff like a corpse. Not like this. Delighting in giving bedding, meaning beds, and in Tibetan also fine garments and dwellings for this reason, the Buddha attained the mark of golden body color. The golden mark, especially dignified golden body color. Staying away from idle talk about worldly affairs. Staying away from various worldly language, now talking about military matters, now talking about worldly things. All kinds of chaotic, all kinds of various worldly speech, this meaning. Usually not loving to speak worldly, various karma creating, slanderous, fault finding, all kinds of words. That's just meaningless. For this reason, what did he attain? The mark of every single pore curling to the right. The hair that grows from the pores also curls to the right, because he delighted in receiving the instructions of good friends and gurus, because he was always willing to accept the verbal instructions from spiritual teachers and good friends. All bodily parts and body hair also curl upward. Not inflicting harmful actions upon sentient beings, not having various harmful actions of body, speech, and mind afflict sentient beings, he attained the mark of fine hair color. In some versions it says mark of dark hair color. Both mark of dark hair color and mark of fine hair color exist. This line seems not to be in the Tibetan version. Not inflicting harmful actions upon sentient beings, he attained the mark of fine hair color. This seems not to be in Tibetan. When the Buddha was in the causal ground, he constantly encouraged sentient beings to practice samadhi. He attained completeness like the Nyagrodha tree. There's a tree called the Nyagrodha tree. Its length and width are especially dignified, complete, and perfect. His marks are like the Nyagrodha tree. Wherever he was born, he delighted in making Buddha images and so forth. No matter where he was born, making Buddha images, making Buddhist sutras. For this reason, what did he attain? The mark of Narayana's strength. In the Tibetan version doesn't have the last mark. It seems the Mahasamnipata Sutra, and these should have it, the mark of attaining Narayana. Narayana is a deva whose strength is extremely great. Even the strength of 200 elephants cannot compare. So the Buddha's marks are truly extraordinary, including when he had the marks of a youth. His strength was incomparable to Devadatta and many others. So the Buddha has such a mark of Narayana's strength. Son of the lineage, Bodhisattva Mahasattvas accomplishing such immeasurable merit, obtain such 32 marks. Good, today we'll stop here.
Bandarangara Badna Atsadardam Bandhangara Padma Sada Bandhangara Padma Sada